Welcome to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock, who is the co-founder of videosocials.net and of videointerviewpodcast.com. In every episode, Mark interviews business and organizational thought leaders who share their stories of how they inspire others by making a difference. You can find this show on videosocials.net and YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and almost any podcast platform of your choosing.
Welcome, folks, and today I am delighted to have a client and friend, Kamelia Poppe, who is an attorney, and she goes by Mia, and Mia is the managing partner and founder of the law firm of Poppe and Associates, PLLC, which is an all-female boutique matrimonial law firm with offices in New York County and Westchester County. Mia is both a relentless advocate for her clients and a published author of 2 books. Mia, I'm so glad we're able to get this going today.
Mark, I'm equally thrilled.
Terrific. So, Mia, I have seen you record numerous videos through our service of Video Socials. I've been to your website. I've been to many of your social media platforms, which are lovely, by the way. And I just know that you're one of the reasons that I wanted you on was I just know that you make a tremendous difference for the clients that you serve and for your industry, in fact. And so I always like to start when I'm interviewing a new guest. What's your story? How did you become the difference that you make for the world?
Well, Mark, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And thank you for asking me that question. I love to speak about my story, which began in Charleston, South Carolina. So I'm a native of Charleston, South Carolina. My grandparents were sharecroppers. My paternal great-grandfather was an actually enslaved person. And my life heavily influenced by my maternal grandparents, who taught me pragmatism and who taught me good manners. And my maternal grandparents, who were very influential in my life, neither had any education, right? But we had good manners in spades. So growing up in South Carolina, I attended a public school, segregated at the time, and had nothing but trouble as a very young child. So my mom, disheartened and not knowing what to do, pulled me out of public school in 3rd grade and put me into a private Christian school, Southern Baptist Christian schools. And that was a big piece of my making. And it was a big piece of the making of the all people kind of person I am, where I very fluidly across diversity, across cultural lines, because I went to school in segregated public school till 3rd grade. And then at that point I was in an all white Southern Baptist school. And that was my life and that was my making. And that's a lot of what makes me today. Like, I'm an everybody kind of people. And it's catapulted my practice because I practice in New York and we're everybody kind of people, right? And so adding to that special sauce, I, went to college, was recruited by Citi, started in banking. And then, Mark, after a divorce at the ripe young age of 42, I went to law school.
Wow.
And graduated from law school, moved to New York City at the worst possible time because it was at the time of one of our market crashes. I couldn't buy a job. And so I started the law firm of Poppe and Associates because I had strong business skills and I had people skills because I was taught good manners, which served me well. And so I started my own firm. And for the first 10 years of my law firm, I mostly represented dads. I had ardent belief that dads were more than just check writers and that divorced dads should have meaningful opportunities to rear and guide and nurture their children. And so my practice, Mark, was about 80% men and about 20% women and same-sex couples. But then, Mark, something dramatic happened in our country. There was an election, and Mr. Trump defeated Miss Clinton, and I had a personal reckoning, a very personal reckoning. And part of that personal reckoning was that women were still very vulnerable, and that women still, to some extent, could be regarded as widgets, as things that people could touch or handle any way that they wanted. And so I had a personal reckoning, and I thought, I need to be a voice for women, because we're not quite where we all believed we were. Even me, Mark.
Yep.
I was right on that. We're all equal bandwagon, that we're all regarded the same. I was on that. I drank that Kool-Aid. And so with that personal reckoning, I really decided that for myself, that I needed to be the voice and face, and in my business, more particularly, the advocate for women. And so that's what I did. And from that, I wrote a couple of books, Unbreaking Wonder Woman and The Empowered Woman's Guide. But it really was the election and my personal reckoning that put me on the path that I am so thrilled to be on. And when I'm servicing clients, and Mark, I'm so happy that you use the word service, because every client that I allow to retain me, 100% of them, Mark, it's personal with me. It's completely personal. There's no client that is a business transaction for me. And I'm not knocking that business model for attorneys. I'm just saying, with my practice, I've made the decision that every client, every matter would be personal, and that I would approach it personally. And what I mean by that is, I look at every client as if they're my family member, as if they're my sister, as if they're my brother. And I say that because, do I represent men? I absolutely represent men, but the lion's share of my business is women.
Wow. I have to say, sometimes I'm just so grateful that I created this podcast, because I just got to know a whole lot about you that I didn't know. And number one. Number two is it never ceases to amaze me, some of the parallels that we have in life. I was raised in the South, in North Carolina, as a Southern Baptist. I was bused into a black school, and so I was the only white person in the elementary school that I was in, much to my parents' chagrin. But I didn't know the difference. I really didn't understand at that age, in elementary school, everybody's just people, right? So
Right.
I think that was like the best thing that ever happened to me in my life, honestly. Now, again, it might seem like it. I went from a fairly rich, all white school to a very, very poor, all of us huddled around the radiator in the wintertime, black school. But I wouldn't trade it for the world, because of who it made me into. And then the second half of my childhood I spent in Maryland, et cetera, just outside of Baltimore. So, integration of races and stuff like that is just not something that was ever an issue for me. So, and what I found was, just as from you, being respectful of others was key. And my wife, whom we're celebrating our 39th wedding anniversary here fairly soon, is a very strong, very intelligent woman. So I'm all about empowerment of human beings. And it just so happens that Video Socials has more women powerful, intelligent businesswomen in it than it does even men, and we certainly do have quite a few men as well. But I think like attracts like. It's
Yes.
and so my and I had a personal reckoning in 2016 as well. So because it's like, why are we going backwards? Why are we going backwards?
Exactly.
So
Personal reckonings.
So all that being said, and I want to get to some of the topics that we talked about, but thank you for being you. I really do appreciate who you are in the world. But kind of changing the subject a little bit, and I think this has to do with one of your books. What if any unique challenges are faced by mothers starting their own businesses? Because this is back to exactly what your foundation is, right?
Yes. And so, Mark, and this is something I give a lot of thought to, because I am in a very blessed position as a mature woman, where I am afforded the opportunity to mentor many young career women. And this comes up frequently. So, one of the biggest challenges that I see as facing women, in particular, when women go to start businesses, is our deeply ingrained mindsets. And I'm talking about the mindsets that we as women hold, right? You have to understand that, depending on where we were raised in the environment and the circumstances, like from the time that we've been, little toddlers, 2 years old, a certain mindset, has been instilled in us. Coming from South Carolina, the mindset that was always instilled in me was, you grow up and you get married and you have babies. Like that was really, that was the mindset. And your, husband is going to go to work, and your husband is going to, take care of you. And, listen, when I graduated from high school, or even when I was a junior and senior in high school, not one teacher, not one counselor ever discussed college with me. They never discussed college with me. And I've always been a book smart person. But you can imagine, for any woman, whatever your hand was, whatever your background was, that translates into a mindset. So, right? And so the number one challenge is a mindset, like our own mindsets. And, how do you address that? Like, if you want to start a business, how do you address your own limiting mindsets? Well, the good news, Mark, that I have for people is that if you have the dream and desire to start your own business, you got a lot of legs up on dethroning that mindset that limits you. Do you get what I mean? Like, if you even dreaming and thinking about starting your own business, you're getting ready to dethrone those limiting mindsets. And Mark, I want to stress that just having the dream, the idea, is a huge step, because it's probably easy for us to all not really know or remember or recognize. But as late as the very late 70s, like 1978, women still in our great country could not get a business loan without a male cosigner. This is like yesterday.
Personal reckoning.
Personal reckoning. So, like, mindset. So examine your mindset. And while you're examining your mindset, don't self-critique. Because remember, I'm saying, if you even have the dream and the aspiration of owning your own business, that's huge. Because I don't personally believe that anything great happens in life without first a dream or a thought. I think dreams and thoughts are incredible seeds. So mindset is number one on its way out. So that's the biggest limiting thing. the other second thing, which is easier to get rid of, is, the voices that are coming from external third parties. And the challenge about getting rid of those voices is because, Mark, those are generally well-meaning voices.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
be careful. I don't know. Most businesses fail within the first 5 years. You don't have a safety net. Like, those are well-intentioned people, Mark,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
And the words of caution are strong. And so that really is the second big barrier to, women in starting their own business. And then the third is specific to women who have children. Because when I started my law firm at that time, I was a single mom of 3 boys. Since then, I've added a set of twins to my brood, bringing my grand total of children up to 5. But, is women with children, we have to, or let me encourage you, let me restate that. I want to encourage you to reframe the way we think about children and child rearing. And, hopefully you'll reframe it and you'll look at it a little differently. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
see children as, well, I can't do blah until my children are in high school or until my children graduate, right?
Yeah.
Well, listen, I invite you to rethink it. All of these activities, all of these things that our children are doing, like, we're getting a payoff. There's some pleasure in that, right? And so reframe it, because once something doesn't seem as a burden or a limitation in your mind, it kind
Mm-hmm.
of ceases to be that.
Right.
And then where your children and where your family and your children and family responsibilities, are concerned, listen, women, mothers, set boundaries for that. Like, we are more than moms, says the mother of 5, right? Right? We
But
are
that's hard.
more.
That's hard. That's
It's
hard.
hard. But listen, one thing I can guarantee from personal experience is when you set limits and you don't let your children's lives and their schedules just completely overtake yours, let me tell you, not only will you be happier and more
Mm-hmm.
successful, but your children. Mark, I can't even describe how proud all 5 of my children are, and 2 of my children are very young. They're elementary school age, and that's significant because those little people tend to be very self-centered. Do for me, serve me, serve me, serve me. But even my young age children are very proud of the fact that their mom has, well, they don't call it my own business, they go, my mom has her own office and my mom
Mm-hmm.
has her own job, right? Set those boundaries, draw those lines, because when we set boundaries with our children and with our families, we really enhance our personal value proposition.
Right.
They will more value their time. Listen, my little elementary school age twins, they so value all of the time that they get with me. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
that's reciprocal. I'm valuing the time that I get with them. But
Yep.
they don't get all of my time. And they don't get to come into my office in my home because I go, mommy's in my office, don't come in my office. It's a boundary,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it just really enhances. So really, watch your mindset, watch the well-intentioned third parties, and make the quality decision to set boundaries where your
Right.
children and your families are concerned. Now, listen, those are the 3 top pieces of advice I would give to women in starting businesses. And I know somebody's saying, how come she didn't mention money? How come she didn't mention capital? Why isn't she talking about that? Many years ago, many years ago, I read a book that had impact on my life, and it was called The Mystery of Capital by Hernando de Soto. an economist, and he's an economist from a third world country. And one of the things that he said in the book that changed my thinking, changed my life, is he said, all over the world, in the poorest of countries, in the places where they don't even have clean water, there is capital in the cupboards. The challenge is, how do you convert the capital, the thing of value that you have? How do you convert it? So it's never a capital problem. It's never a money problem. It's how do you convert it? And guess what, everyone? That conversion process, that goes back to mindset. So I'm going to stick, Mark, with my 3 pieces of advice: our mindset, the voices of well-intentioned third parties, and setting boundaries for your families. And those are my top 3 pieces of advice, Mark.
We could go on about this all day, because I mean, you're touching on, you're literally touching on like the basis of what it takes to realize that to live a full life, you can't be just a professional business person, or just an employee, or just a parent, right? It's your ability to have boundaries both ways in all of those areas, so that you can operate inside of those areas and be effective in all areas. And I couldn't agree with you more, as somebody who has raised 3 children, has 2 grandchildren. That setting boundaries and not just being there, for them every second, every minute, for every little whim, every little thing that they want, but actually structuring your time with them, and then you're 100% available for when you are there for them, right? So, and of course, emergencies and crises come up, and things have to shift around, but the reality is that being present to whatever it is that you're creating, because I'm also a trained business coach, which is basically has its basis in life coaching, and that is that being present to whatever it is that we're trying to do. And when you're talking about mindset, it's being present to the fact that it is possible for you. Whatever you can dream, whatever you can imagine, and you can crystallize, that is possible. Our biggest limiting factor is the fact that we can't imagine it, or we get stuck in where we've been raised, or in the circumstances and the well-meaning advice of others, rather than imagining, I could be a business person, I could do this, I could have a family and a career. What a concept, right? So, really, really wonderful. So for me, that really sets the stage for my next question, is because I know you're a guide, and you're a guide especially in this area of divorce. But what inspired you to write the Empowered Women's Guide to Divorce?
Oh my gosh. Mark, I'm taking a deep breath before I answer this question, because it is so personal to me. So I filed for divorce from my second husband in 2015. That divorce was final by 2017. Lo and behold, 2019 comes, and I get served with what's called a post-judgment action, right? So the divorce is done, and somebody files, and in my case, it was a custody action against you, which pulled me directly into full-scale litigation. So it's 2019. I'm pulled into this custody, literally, battle, and I'm running a business, Mark. And Mark, not only am I running a business, I'm a single mom. And so, like, my running my business is for profit, because I have to finance the lives of my family as a single person.
Right.
And this being served threatened to completely destroy me, because if I can't focus, if my mind is fluttered, I can't generate revenue to support my family. And I knew that immediately. And I knew that I was in the presence of something that was threatening to completely undermine and really wreak havoc on my whole life. Immediately, I recognized that. And immediately, Mark, thank God for wisdom. But immediately I knew the answer. And what the answer was really was for me to team up. And something that women aren't quick to do that I want to start encouraging women to do is making financial investments into your life. So, Mark, I retained a life coach. I retained a meditation coach. And not immediately, but later down the road, I hired a business coach. At a time when I was being threatened with losing my money, all my savings, I started spending on these coaches. Right. And my outcome was so in this litigation, my outcome was so extraordinary and it was so powerful. And it was because I had professionals around me that did what, Mark? They empowered me.
Yep.
I did not walk that tumultuous journey alone. And I was not afraid, Mark, to write a check for the saving of Mia. Remember Saving Private Ryan? You send all the troops out to save Private Ryan. Mark, seriously, I
know.
Not hesitate in writing checks to save Mia. You talk about team up. And I went through that matter in such an empowered way because of the team I had holding me up, teaching me, pulling out bad mindsets. The woman who life coached me said, Mia, your rate of adoption of everything I say, I've never seen such a fast rate of adoption. Well, that's because I was faced with such a desperate situation. And when you're faced with, being faced with a desperate situation is not all that bad. And I'm going to tell you why. Because either I could begin crying a lot because I had a lot to cry over, or I could listen to my professionals and I could follow their roadmap. It didn't matter that I didn't have a clear head or that all I needed to do, Mark, was follow the roadmap of my trusted professionals. And I went through that action in such an empowered way. And I'm telling you that the empowerment came from my team. And because I had these incredible professionals around me, I was able to articulate 10 guidelines. How did I go through this in an empowered fashion? These are the 10 guidelines. And how did I have this incredible clarity over these 10 guidelines? Because I was coached up, right? And that led to me writing my second book, which is titled The Empowered Woman's Guide to Divorce. But before I wrote that book, Mark, the first book I wrote, I co-wrote with my life coach, because every time we were coaching, she was like, oh my God, your adoption. Well, it's because it was either adopt, hurt ways, or fail in life and have my kids fail with me. Right. And so we wrote this book, and the title of my book number 1 is called Unbreaking Wonder Woman. Because what I want women to know, Mark, is that sometimes in life we get broken. Things break us, Mark.
Yep.
And there's no shame in that. But listen, the good news is that there is an unbreaking. And what I want to tell people, Mark, don't go it alone. Team up. If I could give one piece of advice to young people, young business people, women, men, whatever the identification is, team up. And I'm not a life coach. I don't make money off of life coaching. But listen, every penny you spend signing up with a coach, you're not paying for a coach. You're making a personal investment. Listen, I was writing checks for saving Mia. Saving Mia Poppe. That should have been on the memo line of every check I wrote. Right.
Yeah.
And so like that's like really my magic. That's, what is the Mia magic? Because I've been so blessed to have what I classify as a very successful life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that through being teamed up,
Yeah.
through having, that support system. And so I can't speak to that enough for people starting businesses. Listen, if you are on a shoestring budget, before you buy yourself, lunch for a month, spend that on 1 month of some sort of professional input, detached input outside of yourself. That extra pair of eyes. I'm telling you, Mark, that is the magic sauce.
So I want to take the opportunity, because I couldn't agree with you more. And before I ask you, what's next for you, which is what we're going to close with today. I did want to let people know, we are self-sponsored, and Video Socials is one of our primary services that we offer, and it's something that you're a member of, and a very valued member of. And I wanted to bring it up now because it's such in parallel to exactly what you're talking about. We decide that we want to create marketing videos. We want to create marketing content that's out there. We want to empower others. We want to share our knowledge. We want to move the ball forward and make that available for others. And when we choose to do that with video, well, then we're faced with, facing this inanimate object called a camera and trying to have a conversation with a future audience. And doing that in your head and doing that on your own is, shall we say, difficult, if not entirely impossible. So we created a process by which we get together in groups of 5 to 10 people, professionals like you, Mia, and many, many others, that are all taking turns recording our marketing videos, recording our video frequently asked questions, recording videos for our websites, for our social media, etc., in which we're sharing knowledge and information and guidance for our audience. And we're making that available for free. And just as you've done many, many times. And we do that together. We do that. We're each other's guides. We're each other's coaches. We're each other's support systems and feedback and suggestions. And we learn from each other. We learn from each other's styles and each other's experience, et cetera, et cetera. Whether we're in the same industry or not, we could be in completely different industries. They're completely unrelated. We still learn from each other. And it's inspiring. And honestly, it's my life's work. I thank you for being a part of it. And if you would, Mia, what do you see in Video Socials? Why do you like it so much?
So so many things are amazing about Video Socials for me, but the thing that strikes me most and that wows me most is that the caliber of professionals that are members of Video Socials. And as you're practicing your videos, after you do your video, your group is giving you feedback. And, because I'm someone who's accustomed to paying coaches, like I'm always getting cha-ching, cha-ching. I can't believe the value that I'm getting from Video Socials, because literally, I don't want to start calling out the names of the members in my chapter, but when I talk about polished speakers and polished orators and polished business professionals and polished coaches, and after I give a video, they're coaching me, they're critiquing me, the word to use is they're top grading me. So every time I go into a meeting, I'm going to get top graded. And it's a phenomenal offering, because, there's that saying, you get what you pay for, but that's not the case with Video Socials. Like, I don't even know what it would cost for me to get this level of feedback and advice and this opportunity to practice and get better and be top graded every single week. Like that stands out to me. Like, Mark, don't start quantifying the benefit, because we would all be outpriced.
Well, we wanted it to be, and it is very affordable, folks. And we'd love to have you as a guest on Video Socials. Just go to videosocials.net, click on the guest tab at the top of the screen. And I don't want it to turn this into, a Video Socials commercial, but it is beyond just a business model or anything else. And we structured it in such a way so that we are doing it in a group, and we are learning together as a group. And so we're sharing the cost of pulling it all together, which basically makes it a lot more affordable for those that are just starting out, or really, having to stretch their dollars for the most. So I certainly haven't seen or heard of anything that's more cost effective. But yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I thank you for your engagement, because just as you've been getting, you've been giving. And every bit of it is appreciated, and we all learn from each other's feedback, even for others that have spoken. I designed it, but at the same token, it actually works far better than I ever imagined that it would. So thank you for that. But and we would be remiss if we didn't tell people how to get in touch with you and everything else. So you've got these books. I'm sure they're available through your website. They're probably available through Amazon.
They're absolutely available through Amazon and through my website. And of course, Mark, you have my social media information, which I believe you're going to be sharing.
Yes, we'll have there'll be links for everything, folks, so you don't have to remember all of this. But your website, Mia, is New York Law, nylawsa.com. Your YouTube channel is NY Law SA. Your LinkedIn is Mia Poppe. Your Facebook is Poppe and Associates PC. Your Twitter is Mia Poppe _ESQ. Your Instagram is Mia Poppe ESQ. And again, we will have all of these links associated with it, so you don't have to remember any of them. Just you'll be able to click on them in the descriptions for whatever, whether you're listening to this podcast or whether or not you're watching it on YouTube or hopefully Mia's website or our website, either way around. So really, we could go on all day, Mia, but I did want to know what's next from you. What are you doing next? Because I know you're not sitting still. You don't do that.
I know I don't do that. So what's next? I have 2 projects that are coming, down the pipe. I am working on a video book entitled "Let Me Be Your Brave," and that will drop in early June. And my team is preparing and scheduling speaking opportunities, and these aren't only live speaking opportunities. These are speaking opportunities on Zoom meetings and Zoom seminars, podcasts like yours, Mark. So my team can be contacted through my social media platforms that Mark has just cited. But I want to share my message. I want to grow my message, and I just want to continue to serve people who might find themselves going through a divorce. And my passion project is, women in business. And so I want to serve women in business. So that's what's next for me, Mark. And thank you so much for asking. And Mark, thank you for inviting me, because it all feels like family.
It certainly does. Mia, really, you're an extraordinary person. I'm so glad to have you on our 44th episode in the Inspiring Business Podcast. And folks, please do check the descriptions of however you're consuming this content so that you can connect with Mia. You can check out her books, check out much of the free content that she has available out there. And And again, we'd love to have you as a guest at Video Socials. So please do stay tuned for just a moment and subscribe to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Inspiring Business with your host, Mark Bullock. Your positive comments, likes, and most importantly, your sharing of this show with others is greatly appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to the Inspiring Business Podcast on whatever platform you prefer. You can catch prior episodes on videosocials.net and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the major podcast platforms.